Hello guys, it's Grimnit here today, and I'm gonna be looking at something that is kind of a little bit late maybe at this point. I wanted to do this a little bit earlier, but I'm sorry, I've been not feeling too well, kind of sick, whatever. But here we are, and we will have a spreadsheet today to look at. So be warned, if you don't like spreadsheets, don't watch this video probably, just maybe skip to the later parts where I will be going over the exact numbers maybe, so you can just look at those and just leave. But if you do care about a little bit more information about maybe some cards that I use in my strategies, then stick around and just see how you like this. Alright, so first off, basically what I did here is I just kept running maps all the time. I would pretty much every day just run like 50, 100, sometimes a little bit more with some specific strategy. In the early days, I just did my basic strat that includes pretty much all of the cards, kind of. I both farm FE and target also embers and stuff like that. So these are these, and then I started doing some other slightly more specific stuff. Here I was ditching Sharp and Magnanimous for the first time, so I'm putting down slightly different information in some of these, and you will also kind of have to pay attention to those. In general, we will have a different sheet here, and you will see what exactly is going on. So the general values that I put down is, of course, the maps run, the time it took, then all of the embers, all the materials, everything FE, flame sand, flame dust, all of this is put down. And then I put down, of course, all the more notable drops. There are some memory fragments or maybe some legendary items. After that, I put into the total profits, I put only items that cost 4 FE or less. So I wouldn't count Ominous, Restless, stuff like terrible price drops. That's not counted in there. Then I will also, of course, count those together. But in general, for the per run, per set, and per hour numbers, that's without any of those expensive items. Of course, afterwards we also go over these with the ominous and restless stuff. All right, so basically that's where we are at right now. This is going to be just pure FE farming one, which is with Sharp, Magnanimous, Generous, and in some of the cases also farming Trial of Might. And there's some other options, but in general, they're all about the same. Mainly, like the Trial of Might is pretty cool. You get a bunch of just straight up FE drops. But the problem there is that you also spend a lot of FE. So what I found in my runs was I made pretty much exactly the same I would make without doing that. And I think I kind of got lucky as well. So don't do it. Don't do the Trial of Might stuff unless you're like uber rich and you just want to see a lot of thingies fall on the ground and go ding, ding, ding. That's cool, but don't do it as a farming method. It's not worth it. Overall, it's not too bad, actually. As you can see, we've done 555 runs. That's the recorded ones. Of course, I've done way more runs in general. You can also see me streaming and stuff, and those numbers also kind of feel about the same when I'm just running stuff off spreadsheet, let's just say. And as you can see, these numbers are somewhat consistent. Like, they're not, of course, 100% exactly the same always, as also the prices of specific embers and stuff like that will fluctuate. Especially now, they're kind of going down, as it will probably happen in every season. But also ominous and restless embers are mostly about the same still, so those can carry you when you're farming embers. Outside of that, you can see that we have average per run with the pure FE farming is 1.37 FE per run. That is counting all of the maps in the set. So the first, like usually it's 2 to 3 first runs are just setup runs where you don't really juice much. I throw in some compasses, maybe, you know, blue ones, whatever, that I already have that are basically free because I get them myself. And then of course the last, sometimes even 3 maps are where I actually start juicing a little bit more, adding pink, purple sextants, compasses, and maybe even legendary ones if the set is really, really good. That's the super juicy ones, if you will. The total profit, and then we end up with a average per hour of 45.66, which I would say is pretty decent. And also one of the things you have to pay in mind, pay note to, is that most of these where I'm juicing for pure FE, where the hell is it? Some of the, yeah, Sharp, Magnanimous, Generous. The problem here is that the per hour number usually is okay. It's pretty good, sometimes even better than on Ember Farms. But the with expensive is very low because we don't really get Ominous, we don't get Restless unless you get really lucky. And also your memory fragments, you don't get too many of those as well, because when you're farming embers, you get a bunch of magic monsters, so you can throw in the card that gives you memory fragments from magic monsters as well. So you get those a lot. So that's kind of the problem. Your basic average is going to be pretty good, very decent, but the average, well, not average, you can say just the spikes in your profit will not be too high, at least unless you get very lucky. Then we can move on to Ember plus memory fragment farming. It just mostly I use this with Just and Honest and including Generous as well, just because we do kind of have that one slot. Like running maps without Generous is kind of stupid in my mind. It doesn't matter what you're farming. So, you know, it's always added and you're still making pretty good profits in terms of pure FE. As you can see, let's say here, this one, you know, we still got 47 pure FE out of 50 maps. And I'm not juicing Magnanimous, Sharp, whatever, you know, I'm not doing that. I'm juicing purely Embers, but I still get around 50 FE, which is almost 1 FE per run still. So it's, you know, I don't think that the Magnanimous and Sharp is really worth it, or the Trial of Might farming. So what do we have here? There will be 2 different separate basically parts to this one. It's one of them is without counting the legendary embers, which is what I did in the beginning. And I had the same setup where I would have total profit and total profit with expensive. But then I realized that pretty much if I do 50 to 100 runs, I will always get the legendary embers. And it's kind of not fair to not show those profits. So now with these, with the Ember ones, I do have a separate listing where it's basically per hour with Ominous and Restless included. So I will still not include their stuff, like if I drop like Wheel of Time or something like that, it's not going to be included, but we will include all the legendary embers as well. So what we have here is basically we get, I did run slightly less, that's on the spreadsheet at least, but of course in general I've run way more with these Ember farms. You can also see me on streams. I've streamed quite a bit with this setup. I will show you the exact setup as well after we are done with this. So I ran 515. The average per run was 1.61. As you can see, that is already better than with just pure FE farm, and that is not counting the legendary embers. Then the average per hour is 53.81, which already again is better than the previous setup with FE farming. And then if we look at the numbers with legendary embers included, they of course go quite a bit higher. The average per run is 2.92, so almost 3 FE that you are making per run, every map basically. Well, of course, the first 2 or 3 usually will be like maybe 1 average, and the last like 2 will be like 4 or 5 or something average. And the average per hour is 97.48. That is pretty great, I would say. Like it's not bad. And with these also, you're not running super fast. I forgot to mention actually that what I'm assuming in all of those is that each run is 1.8 minutes for me. That's pretty much the average that I've seen. That's counting all the loading times, putting in compasses, blah blah blah, all that stuff. So bear that in mind, it's 1.8 minutes. If you're wondering about the average per hour, that's what I'm counting. And of course, we will have a separate thingy for speed rushing. That's going to be slightly faster, but yeah. So yeah, we are nearing 100 FE per hour. Of course, do take this with a pinch of salt, as we are counting the legendary embers, which are pretty expensive, of course. And, you know, sometimes it does happen. I've had a couple of places where I'm not really getting any for like 50 runs or something. But overall, I've done 515 here, and then I've done hundreds more on stream, off stream that I have not put down, and it usually does happen. You do get some ominous, and sometimes I've had some insane luck where in literally like 10-15 minutes I've made over 100 FE. So, you know, bear that in mind. It's pretty good. So I will show you this part as well. Didn't do too many off stream, just on my spreadsheet I did 200 runs of speedrushing. That was with my speedy boy character, with my Carino, and as it turns out, it's not that fast actually. Like your character is very fast, but first off, you need to do the loading times, you need to click things, you need to open the map first. Then in some cases you run to the boss, and the boss is not spawned yet, so you're just like running back and forth and waiting for the boss to spawn, blah blah blah. It's not so great. So the average here was 1.6 minutes per run, so it's not actually that much faster. And you can actually see that in the end results as well, as the average per run is a little bit under 1 FE per run, and the average per hour is just 36 FE, which still is okay, of course. It's not absolutely terrible, but considering how many travelers you kill and stuff like that in per hour, it's not that great. It's not that great. This is good only if you really want to try and maybe force farm infinities or something like that. All right, so basically if you want to, you know, kind of more look at these numbers, you can just take a screenshot or something, whatever. I don't really have any crazy formulas here or anything, so I'm not going to share the spreadsheet. I don't think it's really worth it. There's nothing interesting there besides this information here. And now I will switch to the game and I'll show you some setups of cards and what compasses I use. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, we are back in the game and I will show you my usual setup that I use right now, that I have found is the best in terms of at least Ember farming, and even FE farm in this setup is also not that bad. So the setup that I use right now is, of course, we go for the Ember stuff. Then of course I use also yarning with magic monsters drop extra memory fragments. And of course this one's also very nice. If you get those Ember drops up, you get a lot of commodities, because those count as commodities, and you also get a bunch of memory fragments that give you other commodities, which in the end gives you quite often some pretty expensive memory fragments that will also give you a bunch of other currency. Outside of that, of course, we still add generous, because not adding generous is kind of sad. And after that, we go for honest, just so we can go for like very hardcore setups with lots of juice, with crazy awakened setups. So pretty much what we hope for. I just had a basically I could at least here I could do this and at least awaken some stuff, but this is not really a good setup. Was pretty unlucky. But in general, what we are hoping for, if we don't get straight up all the good Ember stuff, we are hoping to get maybe this reserved so we can throw out one of the cards that we have already in hopes that we draw some good other stuff. Of course, then it's also nice to have this because this removes the cost basically of running a map. So this green bubble doesn't go away. So you're not actually running maps. It doesn't count them at that point. So you have enough time to actually set stuff up, and you have still like 3 good runs in the whole set. So what quite often for me happens is that I get like reserved and maybe like one of the Ember cards. I will use reserved, draw this, draw honest, use this up, and then, you know, maybe I got just, so I can run just again, and then I awaken maybe some of these cards because that's kind of what you're looking for. You really want to push for Awakened Zeal and Awakened Tolerant. If you get those in combination with some magic monsters, you're making a bunch of currency. And the chances of you getting Ominous and Restless Embers are pretty insane. And now let's go over some of the compasses that I use. In general, what I will do is I will throw in pretty much anywhere where I have Zeal, which is the card that gives you embers from magic monsters. I will just throw in 2 of these, which is gonna give you just 3 extra packs of magic monsters, which is just a few extra embers every run. Later on, of course, if we do get a good setup, in general, I try to do this only, like, I would say if you want to stay very profitable, do this only when you get at least one of the Ember cards awakened and you have both of them. So you will set it up so you have last 3 maps. Basically on the third one, like the first of the last 3, you will run something like this, just the magic monsters, and maybe throw in like the extra embers or something like that, you know, whatever. If you have memory fragment card, you can throw in the one that multiplies memory frags. And on the last 2, then you go for legendary magic monsters, pink magic monsters, and purple. And then, of course, legendary ember, which also gives you a 3% chance for embers to be upgraded, which means if you, with this compass active, if you drop a ruling or technique ember, there is a chance that it will upgrade to an ominous or restless ember. And in my experience, you do get quite a bit of those. As you could see already in the spreadsheets, the numbers go up pretty high, and I was on most of those setups. I was also reducing the cost of all of this stuff. Basically, if I would get an ominous ember, and that would take me like 5 separate runs with all of these crazy compasses enabled, I would remove that one ominous ember from the spreadsheet as covering the cost of the compasses. As you can see, those compasses are not too crazy. Of course, let's go over this stuff. So like the pink ones already are kind of, you know, expensive-ish, but you can see it's like 2, sometimes even 3 compasses per 1 FE, which is not too bad. And then the legendary ones are also not too bad. Usually you can actually get them for like 2.5 FE each, and the Ember ones as well. I don't really know why that's the case. People really push for the FE ones, and I'm guessing that it's mostly just due to like super crazy farming stuff. Like if you have the chalk pet, that gives you FE drops from every monster, like, you know, gives you a chance to get a FE drop from any monsters. Mainly because of that, I think those compasses are more expensive. So you can pretty much just abuse that fact and, well, make a bunch of currency farming embers. I won't show you the other setups that I used because I don't think there really is much of a point. Of course, I'm giving you the best setup that I have. I'm not going to give you setups that I think are just way worse. So stick to that if you just want to make a bunch of currency. And the good part here is also that you just have a lot of crafting materials. So if you want to craft, you can quite often just farm for like 2-3 hours, go to crafting, and you can quite often make a 6 tier 1 stat item with like 1 ominous mod or something like that. So that's pretty awesome, and you spend less time buying stuff on the auction house. And yeah, I kind of wanted to go over what I'm doing right now, what's going on. I'm not playing Torchlight right now too much. Once we get to know the date of the hardcore SSF event, a week before that I will start my preparation run. I'll probably be running Moto, of course. I think that's kind of my main at this point. So I'll run Moto. And yeah, I'll do the preparation run, see what happens, see what needs to be adjusted. And then when the event comes, I will be sure to join. And yeah, I think it should be pretty fun. We will see some content out of that. But outside of that, we'll see. Maybe I end up playing PoE when the new league comes out. I can see that quite a lot of people want to see that. So, you know, and I'm pretty good at farming and, you know, different strats and all that in PoE as well. So I might give you some interesting content there. Outside of that, maybe some Last Epoch, especially when the multiplayer comes out. On December, probably not. I played it a couple of times now, and I just don't feel it. It's just, and knowing that the end game is pretty fucking boring, I just don't want to play the game. All right, that's going to be it from me. If you like this type of content, just, you know, sometimes maybe just pushing pure numbers into your face and stuff like that, and maybe some strategies on how to make more currency, then make sure to like the video and subscribe. Kind of don't like begging for this stuff, but of course it does feel nice when you people do that. So yep, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.